and foreign cooperation to empower the implementation of Tridharma of higher education. In the implementation of its education, PhysicUNS manages 8 study programs with the following details. Undergraduate in State Administration Science, majoring in Public Policy, Public Management and Development Administration. In Communication Science, specializing in Journalism, Public Relations, Radio and Video. Graduate in Sociology, specializing in social phenomena such as Sociology of Health, Sociology of Law, Sociology of Economics, and many other aspects of human life. In International Relations with major interest in international cooperation politics, international communication and political diplomacy. Namely Master in Public Administration, Master in Communication Sciences, and Master in Sociology, doctoral program in Communication Science. With a keep increasing number of registrants from year to year, this indicates that PhysicUNS is one of the favorite faculties in Universitas 11 Maret Surakarta, in which PhysicUNS always applies transparent and professional principles in every new student admission selection process. As the right place for education to forge students to become characterized leaders of Indonesia, UNS applies 5 pillars of UNS development policy, which is in line with the slogan, Leading the Future Society. The pillars are acceleration of professionalism and welfare of human resources, accelerations of publication and innovation, acceleration of reorientation of the learning system in line with the Industrial Revolution 4.0, institutional development and literacy empowerment, and optimization in the field of law, cooperation, and bureaucracy. The collaboration of the 5 pillars of the university development policies, along with the vision and mission of PhysicUNS, can run in line with the values of leading the future society, are clearly stated in Buddhist understanding, humanism governance, Pancasila diplomacy, one society, one prosperity. The academic climate created in the environment of PhysicUNS cannot be separated from the facilities and infrastructure provided. As one of the fundamental elements in teaching and learning process, UNS continues to commit themselves to provide the best facilities according to students' needs. This is supported by various infrastructure provided in the campus, including internationally standardized classrooms, broadcasting studio, editing room, computer lab, seminar room, hall, public space, and adequate Wi-Fi network. Physics UNS also presents lecturers who meet qualification standards both nationally and internationally and are active in various research activities, research and services, as well as actively enriching the number of publications, articles, journals, books, and increasing the number of intellectual property rights certificates at the national level. Good collaboration in all aspects of learning is expected to be able to create synergies among the academic community of Physics UNS and raise students' awareness to compete at national and international levels by winning several competitions among the students. The various prominences of Physics UNS will of course be in line with the quality of graduates produced. The alumni who are currently working and serving in various fields and lines are the evidence of our commitment in producing competent graduates. We use several indicators to measure the quality of our graduates while competing in the world of job. Waiting time in getting a job, average GPA of graduates, average length of study period are important points for assessing the quality of Physics UNS graduates in the job market. In its role to support Universitas 11 Maret Surakarta towards the world-class university, Physics UNS also continuously improves the collaboration in building good collaboration with various parties and institutions at international scale.
Physics UNS berkomitmen untuk menghasilkan lulusan yang memenuhi standar sebagai calon pemimpin masa depan berkarakter. Untuk menghasilkan calon lulusan berkarakter tersebut, Physics UNS menerapkan unit penjaminan mutu. Dengan unit penjaminan mutu akan terkendali sistem penjaminan mutu internal dan didukung oleh gugus kendali mutu di tingkat program studi. Merdeka belajar menjadi hak dari setiap mahasiswa untuk dapat mengambil mata kuliah di program studi yang lain, baik pada fakultas yang berbeda maupun pada universitas yang berbeda. Untuk itu, Physics UNS siap mendukung dengan berbagai macam fasilitas yang ada agar merdeka belajar bisa dipenuhi untuk kepentingan mahasiswa. Physics UNS siap mendukung UNS menjadi World Class University. Status PTNPH bagi UNS yang baru saja ditetapkan melalui PP nomor 56 tahun 2020 menjadi landasan yang kuat bagi UNS untuk menuju World Class University. Physics UNS leading the future society.
Faculty of Social and Political Sciences Universitas 11 Maret Surakarta or FISIP UNS was founded in 1976, inaugurated at the same time with Universitas 11 Maret Surakarta. FISIP UNS carries the vision as a center for the development of science, technology and empowerment of superior human resources in the field of social and political sciences based on the noble values of national culture and described in a series of missions as follows. Organizing education and teaching that meets competency standards in the fields of social and political sciences. Researching to support the development of social and political sciences that can contribute to the life of the nation. Organizing community service activities to improve intelligence and community independence. Increasing domestic and foreign cooperation to empower the implementation of Tridharma of higher education. In the implementation of its education, FISIP UNS manages 8 study programs with the following details. Undergraduate in State Administration Science, majoring in Public Policy, Public Management, and Development Administration. In Communication Science, specializing in Journalism, Public Relations, Radio, and Video. Graduate in Sociology, specializing in social phenomena such as Sociology of Health, Sociology of Law, Sociology of Economics, and many other aspects of human life. In International Relations with major interest in international cooperation politics, international communication, and political diplomacy. Namely Master in Public Administration, Master in Communication Sciences, and Master in Sociology, doctoral program in Communication Science. With the keep increasing number of registrants from year to year, this indicates that FISIP UNS is one of the favorite faculties in Universitas 11 Maret Surakarta, in which FISIP UNS always applies transparent and professional principles in every new student admission selection process. As the right place for education to forge students to become characterized leaders of Indonesia, UNS applies 5 pillars of UNS development policy, which is in line with the slogan, Leading the Future Society. The pillars are acceleration of professionalism and welfare of human resources, accelerations of publication and innovation, acceleration of reorientation of the learning system in line with the Industrial Revolution 4.0, institutional development and literacy empowerment, and optimization in the field of law, cooperation, and bureaucracy. The collaboration of the 5 pillars of the university development policies, along with the vision and mission of FISIP UNS, can run in line with the values of leading the future society, which are clearly stated in borderless understanding, humanism governance, Pancasila diplomacy, one society, one prosperity. The academic climate created in the environment of FISIP UNS cannot be separated from the facilities and infrastructure provided. As one of the fundamental elements in teaching and learning process, UNS continues to commit themselves to provide the best facilities according to students' needs. This is supported by various infrastructure provided in the campus, including internationally standardized classrooms, broadcasting studio, editing room, computer lab, seminar room, hall, public space, and adequate Wi-Fi network. Visip UNS also presents lecturers who meet qualification standards both nationally and internationally and are active in various research activities, research and services, as well as actively enriching the number of publications, articles, journals, books, and increasing the number of intellectual property rights certificates at the national level. Good collaboration in all aspects of learning is expected to be able to create synergies among the academic community of Visip UNS and raise students' awareness to compete at national and international levels by winning several competitions among the students. The various prominences of Visip UNS will of course be in line with the quality of graduates produced. The alumni who are currently working and serving in various fields and lines are the evidence of our commitment in producing competent graduates. We use several indicators to measure the quality of our graduates while competing in the world of job. Waiting time in getting
and Political Sciences Faculty, Universitas 11 Maret, Indonesia, Profesor Dr. Ismi Dwi Astuti Nurhaini, MSI, distinguished keynote speakers, presenters, all participants, and of course, all invited guests. Good morning from Indonesia, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Honorable Rector of Universitas 11 Maret Indonesia, Profesor Dr. Jamal Wiwoho SH.M. Hum, Honorable Dean of Social and Political Sciences Faculty, Universitas 11 Maret Indonesia, Profesor Dr. Ismi Dwi Astuti Nurhaini, MSI, distinguished keynote speakers, presenters, all participants, and of course, all invited guests. Good morning from Indonesia, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Yusron Afifi. It is such an awesome and precious chance for me to be your master of ceremony. Today, on Wednesday, 3 August 2022, in our big event, the 7th International Conference on Social and Political Sciences, Transformation in Times of Crisis. This is such an honor for us to welcome all of you in this conference. The 7th International Conference on Social and Political Sciences, proudly organized by Faculty of Social and Political Sciences, Universitas 11 Maret, Indonesia. By raising the theme, Transformation in Times of Crisis. This conference will discuss transformation issues in various fields, along with the COVID-19 crisis.
agar merdeka belajar bisa dipenuhi untuk kepentingan mahasiswa. FISIP UNS siap mendukung UNS menjadi World Class University. Status PTNBH bagi UNS yang baru saja ditetapkan melalui PP nomor 56 tahun 2020 menjadi landasan yang kuat bagi UNS untuk menuju World Class University. FISIP UNS Leading the Future Society.
Faculty of Social and Political Sciences Universitas 11 Maret Surakarta or FISIP UNS was founded in 1976, inaugurated at the same time with Universitas 11 Maret Surakarta. FISIP UNS carries the vision as a center for the development of science, technology, and empowerment of superior human resources in the field of social and political sciences based on the noble values of national culture and described in a series of missions as follows. Organizing education and teaching that meets competency standards in the fields of social and political sciences. Researching to support the development of social and political sciences that can contribute to the life of the nation. Organizing community service activities to improve intelligence and community independence. Increasing domestic and foreign cooperation to empower the implementation of Tridharma of higher education. In the implementation of its education, FISIP UNS manages 8 study programs with the following details. Undergraduate in State Administration Science, majoring in Public Policy, Public Management, and Development Administration. In Communication Science, specializing in Journalism, Public Relations, Radio, and Video. Graduate in Sociology, specializing in social phenomena such as sociology of health, sociology of law, sociology of economics, and many other aspects of human life. In International Relations with major interest in international cooperation politics, international communication, and political diplomacy. Namely Master in Public Administration, Master in Communication Sciences, and Master in Sociology. Doctoral program in Communication Science. With a keep increasing number of registrants from year to year, this indicates that FISIP UNS is one of the favorite faculties in Universitas 11 Maret Surakarta, in which FISIP UNS always applies transparent and professional principles in every new student admission selection process. As the right place for education to forge students to become characterized leaders of Indonesia, UNS applies 5 pillars of UNS development policy, which is in line with the slogan, Leading the Future Society. The pillars are acceleration of professionalism and welfare of human resources, acceleration of publication and innovation, acceleration of reorientation of the learning system in line with the Industrial Revolution 4.0, institutional development and literacy empowerment, and optimization in the field of law, cooperation, and bureaucracy. The collaboration of the 5 pillars of the university development policies, along with the vision and mission of FISIP UNS, can run in line with the values of leading the future society, which are clearly stated in Buddha's understanding, humanism governance, Pancasila diplomacy, one society, one prosperity. The academic climate created in the environment of FISIP UNS cannot be separated from the facilities and infrastructure provided. As one of the fundamental elements in teaching and learning process, UNS continues to commit themselves to provide the best facilities according to students' needs. This is supported by various infrastructure provided in the campus. FISIP UNS also presents lecturers who meet qualification standards both nationally and internationally and are active in various research activities, research and services, as well as actively enriching the number of publications, articles, journals, books, and increasing the number of intellectual property rights certificates at the national level. Good collaboration in all aspects of learning is expected to be able to create synergies among the academic community of FISIP UNS and raise students' awareness to compete at national and international levels by winning several competitions among the students. The various prominences of FISIP UNS will of course be in line with the quality of graduates produced. The alumni who are currently working and serving in various fields and lines are the evidence of our commitment in producing competent graduates. We use several indicators to measure the quality of our graduates while competing in the world of job. Waiting time in getting a job, average GPA of graduates, average length of study period are important points for assessing the quality of FISIP UNS graduates in the job market. In its role to support Universitas 11 Maret Surakarta towards the world-class university, FISIP UNS also continuously improves the collaboration in building good collaboration with various parties and institutions at international scale.
FISIP UNS berkomitmen untuk menghasilkan lulusan yang memenuhi standar sebagai calon pemimpin masa depan berkarakter. Untuk menghasilkan calon lulusan berkarakter tersebut, FISIP UNS menerapkan unit penjaminan mutu. Dengan unit penjaminan mutu akan terkendali sistem penjaminan mutu internal dan didukung oleh gugus kendali mutu di tingkat program studi. Merdeka belajar menjadi hak dari setiap mahasiswa untuk dapat mengambil mata kuliah di program studi yang lain, baik pada fakultas yang berbeda maupun pada universitas yang berbeda. Untuk itu, FISIP UNS siap mendukung dengan berbagai macam fasilitas yang ada agar merdeka belajar bisa dipenuhi untuk kepentingan mahasiswa.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Honorable Rektor of Universitas 11 Maret Indonesia, Profesor Dr. Jamal Wiwoho, SHM, Honorable Dean of Faculty Social and Political Sciences, Universitas 11 Maret Indonesia, Profesor Dr. Ismi Dwi Astuti Nurhaini, MSI. Distinguished keynote speakers, presenters, all participants, and of course, all invited guests. Good morning from Indonesia, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Yusron Afifi. It is such an awesome and precious chance for me to be your master of ceremony. Today, on Wednesday, 3 August 2022, in our big event, the 7th International Conference on Social and Political Sciences, Transformation in Times of Crisis. This is such an honor for us to welcome all of you in this conference. The 7th International Conference on Social and Political Sciences, proudly organized by Faculty of Social and Political Sciences, Universitas 11 Maret, Indonesia. By raising the theme, Transformation in Times of Crisis, this conference will discuss transformation issues in various fields along with the COVID-19 crisis in the world. The key words in this transformation are adaptation, resilience, and innovation. By focusing on transformation issues, this conference will bring scholars, practitioners, and policymakers from various disciplines to discuss change in various fields of life during the COVID-19 pandemic and in the future. This conference is also expected to be medium of dissemination This conference is also expected to be a medium for disseminating research findings related to issues of change in various fields, including but not limited to social, economic, cultural, educational, politics and government, gender, environment, religion, communication, and international relations. First of all, I would like to let you know today's agenda. The first agenda is opening, followed by the speech and plenary session 1. Parallel session will be the next agenda, and the last agenda is closing. Everyone, please give applause for the 7th International Conference on Social and Political Sciences, or ICOSEPS 2022. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, before we start our conference, we will sing Indonesian National Anthem, Indonesia Raya. For the participants, please kindly be raised.
Indonesia, kebangsaan
please be seated. The next agenda is the speech. The first speech is committee report by the conference chair. It is now my pleasure to call upon the conference chair, Dr. Yuyun Sunesti Jidisok, MA, to deliver the report. Honorable Dr. Yuyun Sunesti Jidisok, MA, time is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, salam kebajikan. Honorable Professor Dr. Jamal Wiwoho, Rector of Universitas 11 Maret. Honorable Professor Ismi Dwi Astuti Nurhaini, Dean of Faculty of Social and Political Sciences, Universitas 11 Maret. Dear Dr. Prahastiwi Utari, Vice Dean of Academic Research and Student Affairs, Dr. Ahmad Zubair as Vice Dean for Human Resources, Finance, and Logistic Affairs, and Dr. Christina as Vice Dean for Planning, Partnership, Business, and Information Affairs. Honorable keynote speakers, Professor Anne Rachel Ticamier from Pennsylvania State University, USA, Associate Professor Minako Sakai from University of New South Wales, Australia, Associate Professor Sabaria Muhammad Saleh from University Kebangsaan Malaysia, Associate Professor Andi Fefta Wijaya from Universitas Brawijaya, and Associate Professor Ignatius Agung Satyawan from Universitas 11 Maret, Indonesia. Moderators, Rino Ardian Nugroho, PhD, and Dr. Asal Erlin Wahyudi. Dear steering and organizing committees of ECOSAP 2022, professors and faculty members, and all the presenters and participants in this 7th ECOSAP 2022. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure to welcome everyone to the 7th International Conference on Social and Political Science held by the Faculty of Social and Political Sciences, Universitas 11 Maret, Surakarta, Indonesia. At this year's conference, we are still overshadowed by the COVID-19 pandemic, which has not yet ended. Even though the COVID-19 trend has declined considerably, prudence is still our priority. Therefore, it is with a heavy heart that we continue to hold this conference online so that we cannot meet with you all in person in these 2 days. Ladies and gentlemen, the COVID-19 pandemic period is also the main theme of our conference. Since COVID started to hit the world in early 2020, many changes have occurred around the world on a large or small scale in our daily lives. For this reason, we invite academic, practitioners, and researchers from various universities and institutions in Indonesia and overseas to share their research and discuss them with us and all participants here. We hope this conference can bring up new ideas and useful for all of us and many parties in the future. Ladies and gentlemen, as in the previous 6 ECOSAPs, the participant enthusiasm also increased in the 7th ECOSAP this year. More than 200 participants registered and submitted their abstract. After reviewing the submitted abstract, 183 abstracts are selected to be presented and this conference by recording and live presentation. Those abstracts are written by academics and researchers from various universities, government institutions, and other organizations in Indonesia, as well as academics from abroad such as Malaysia, Taiwan, Singapore, Australia, Pakistan, South Korea, Spain, and Thailand. We are very grateful for your participation in this conference. Additionally, for the publication of articles from this conference, we have collaborated with 10 Indonesian journals indexed by Sinta, 1 international journal indexed by Scopus, the Malaysian Journal of Communication of University Kebangsaan Malaysia, and proceedings published by the Atlantis Press, part of Springer Nature. We hope that the research results of the participant can be well disseminated through the publication we have offered. Last but not least, on behalf of the ECOSAP committees, I apologize if there are shortcomings in organizing this year's conference. Thank you once again to the keynote speakers, moderators, presenters, and participants who have joined our event. I do believe you all will take benefit a lot from this conference. Enjoy the conference. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yuyun Sunesti, GD SOC MA, for the report. And we want to remind to everyone to open your camera during this conference. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the second speech is opening remark by Dean of Social and Political Sciences Faculty, Universitas 11 Maret, Indonesia, Honorable Professor Dr. Ismi Dwi Astuti Nurhaini, MSI. Time is yours.
In line with our vision as the center of science development, technology, and empowerment of human resources in internationally connected social and political fields, Faculty of Social and Political Sciences of Universitas 11 Maret represents the seventh international event involving over 200 participants from Indonesia and overseas. With the theme of transformation issues in various fields, along with the COVID-19 crisis that just hit the world, the second IPSET becomes an ideal academic and scientific platform for researchers, experts, and policymakers from all over the world to get and engage in fruitful talks and discussions. I do hope that this conference will become an effective medium for a dissemination of research findings of many fields of study. Moreover, this would also be a valuable experience for all of our participants and contributors. Accordingly, I'd like to welcome you all to COSEP 20.
Thank you, Professor Dr. Ismi Dwi Astuti Nurhaini, MSI, for the speech. Next, we would like to invite the Rector of Universitas 11 Maret, Indonesia, Honorable Professor Dr. Jamal Wiwoho, SHM, to deliver his opening remark. Professor Dr. Jamal Wiwoho, SHM, time is yours.
11 Maret University is one of the prestigious university with a target work goal becoming a university of international reputation. Achievement are getting more and more engraved every year. In 2022, University 11 Maret became the only state university in Indonesia to appear in the Time Higher Education Young University Ranking 2020. In addition, the Faculty of Social and Political Science, Universitas 11 Maret make a real contribution to the progress on UNS on international level, one of which of thought the holding of regular international conference. The 2020 International Conference on Social and Political Science, ECOSOC, is the seventh event that this year carried the big theme. The 2022 International Conference Social and Political Science, ECOSOC, in the seventh event that this carrier, the big theme, transformation in time of crisis. The implementation of ECOSOC 2020 aimed to increase the number of national and international publications from domestic and international academics in the adaptation, resilience, and innovation. I ask the
Now we will start our plenary session 1 in the seventh International Conference on Social and Political Sciences and we will to remind you, all of you, everyone, please open your camera during this conference in all session. And in this session, we will discuss with our distinguished speakers. First, Professor Antic Nair from Department of Agriculture, Economics, Sociology, and Education from Pennsylvania State University, United States of America. Second, Associate Professor Ignatius Agung Satyawan from Faculty of Social and Political Sciences, Universitas 11 Maret, Indonesia. Third, Associate Professor Sabariah Muhammad Saleh from Faculty of Social Sciences and Humanities, University Kebangsaan Malaysia. And this session will be guided by Rino Ardian Nugroho SOS MTI PhD as the moderator. Before giving the time to the moderator, let us inform you the biography of Rino Ardian Nugroho SOS MTA PhD. Rino Ardian Nugroho SOS MTA PhD is a lecturer at Department of Public Administration, Faculty of Social and Political Sciences, Universitas 11 Maret, Indonesia. He got the title Doctor of Philosophy from the University of Queensland, Australia, with the thesis subject in electronic government. Without any further ado, Honorable Rino Ardian Nugroho SOS MTI PhD, time is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. My name is Rino Nugroho. I will be your moderator for the first session. So, as I've been presented before, that this conference will discuss about the transformation in time of crisis. As we understand how the COVID-19 has changed the landscape of the human life in daily life. So, in this wonderful occasion, we have already invited three prominent keynote speakers from different universities. First of all, Professor Antic Nair from Pennsylvania State University, and Associate Professor Agung Satyawan from Universitas 11 Maret, and last but not least, Associate Professor Sabariah Muhammad Saleh from University Kebangsaan Malaysia. All of those keynote speakers will discuss about the recent trends in their respective fields, and how we handle transformation during COVID-19 and how life after COVID-19 will perspective. All right, without further ado, I would like to invite Professor Antic Nair to be present during and after COVID. She will speak about the riskscapes of gender, disaster, and climate change toward transformative resilience. So please enjoy the first presenter, Professor Antic Nair.
Good morning, everyone. Selamat pagi. Although it's very late here in Manhattan, I'm very happy to be here.
Morning, Professor. What time is it now in the US, Professor?
I'm sorry, what?
What time is it now in the US?
It's 9:42
All right, 9:42.
at night.
Yes, quite struggling. Happy to have you here.
Well, I'm very happy to be here. I'd rather actually be here, but virtually is better than nothing. My screen says that I can't screen share, and I need to screen share
Yes,
for
of
my
course.
talk. So, do you
Yeah.
know?
Do you need the access to get the screen share? Or?
My talk.
All right, yeah.
Let me
Second,
see.
just give Professor Anna facility to share her screen. Okay. Yep. It's already done. You can check it now, Professor.
It says it's still disabled.
Oh, okay. Well, let us fix it here.
Sorry.
So it's interesting to see about the resilience, Professor. So you will be talk about that during the session.
Yes, yes. Uh, a lot about some of the research that spans different social science fields. My field of sociology, but also geography, and certainly disaster studies. But let me see if I can, if it works now. Ah, yes.
Yeah. Is
Okay.
it okay now?
Oops. Yeah, it's fine now.
All right.
Let me see if I can. Of course, it's not at the beginning. Okay. Okay, I'm going to just talk about riskscapes and resilience and how they are connected with gender relations. It's both theoretical and empirical, and it's based on more than 2 decades of research conducted by myself, but especially with my colleagues in Indonesia. And I should say that I have a paper I can share if people are interested, but we can talk about that at the end. We will examine riskscapes, resilience, and gender relations, and why Indonesia makes such a good site for studying these issues. Has become a central focus and goal in efforts to manage both disaster and climate change. While many definitions of resilience exist in the context of disaster, they typically refer to the capacity of individuals, families, communities to absorb, to withstand, and recover from the shocks presented by natural and human-made disasters. Standard definitions use the image of the ability to bounce back after disaster strikes. More recently, emphasis has shifted to transformative resilience, or the ability to bounce forward, to implement changes to a system that is no longer viable. As the scale and scope of climate change and its related disasters become more and more evident, the need to address both rapid and slow onset shocks becomes unavoidable. Indonesia, for examining the relationships between gender disaster and climate change and their implications for risk, recovery, and resilience. Indonesia is the locale for innumerable natural and human-generated disasters. Climate change, because its geophysical characteristics and as a tropical archipelago in the Pacific Ring of Fire, make the nation a prime site for climate change impacts and the disasters that come in their wake. If you Google Indonesia and disaster or Indonesian climate change or Indonesian hazards, there are dozens of maps showing how it is vulnerable. Here are 2. This one is looking at natural hazards or risks, and the dark red and brown of most of Indonesia shows just how vulnerable it is. Only the Philippines rivals it in Southeast Asia. Similarly, if we're looking at climate change hazard index, and I won't go into what that means, but once again, Indonesia, because it's bright red, means that it's very vulnerable to a lot of climate change, and this is multiple climate change. As I said, you can go in Google and see dozens more, both natural disasters, human-made disasters, earthquakes, floods, you name it. And we're also looking at gender because women, roughly half the population, have demonstrably greater risk and vulnerability to disaster as long as disparities exist in their access to status, resource, and public affairs. In Indonesia, as in much of the world, women and girls remain disadvantaged in the household, in the community, and in the larger society. They are underrepresented in politics and political arenas. At the same time, there is standing disaster risk and resilience. Our research over the past couple of decades has been to investigate these relationships empirically and theoretically. We apply a risk
Recording in
The risk-based
progress.
model takes an overlapping and multidimensional view of the drivers of both risk and resilience, social systems and processes to understand of disasters of different types, and also, of course, climate change. According to Muller-Mann and his colleagues, riskscapes are landscapes of risk that exist in relation to practice. They encompass the geopolitical territory of hazard and the social construction of vulnerability. Thus, they comprise the intersection of spatial, temporal, and social factors that denote the nature of risk, for whom, when, and where it is located. They provide a setting for shared understanding and collective practices that are characterized by dynamic processes rather than structures and boundaries. And here is a model that Muller-Mann and colleagues have developed, and it shows 6 different dimensions of riskscapes. The multiple and overlapping dimensions are depicted in the diagram, but of course it's a one-dimensional diagram, so it doesn't really capture it. Nevertheless, if we try to look at what these different dimensions are, we start with spatial and temporal, which are the obvious ones. They depict variability in time and space at different scales. For the devastated Aceh, South and Southeast Asia, with varying impacts in different locales and in subtly varying time frames. Aceh presents one riskscape of the many that were affected by the event. The practice dimension reflects different social and cultural constructions that are defined by action and activity, or as they say, doings and sayings. The long history of spiritual practices developed to manage knowledge of the risk from eruptions of Mount Merapi that are observed and practiced by villagers who live on the slopes of the volcano exemplify this dimension and can assist in understanding how residents of the area react and respond. Subjectivities in social groups are the communities of practice or the human carriers of social practices whose perceptions of risk are created in practice. They may be actual social groups or virtual ones who share perceptions of risk and response. Every human society and every community has a multiplicity of such groups. Hence the next dimension, plurality, which refers to the fact that there will be different subjectivities, different experiences and perceptions, understandings of risk, even within the same locale. Finally, we get to power relations, which in some ways is among the most important of the dimensions, because these capture the inequalities of both embedded in institutions and policies and in intersectional relations among groups and individuals that influence vulnerabilities and management strategies. In the original model, they are treated as the formal organizations of governments and intergovernmental organizations that exercise power over their constituents. However, there are many other sources of power relations found in hierarchies determined by people's attributes and groups, such as gender, race, class, caste, and age, that are known to create structures of inequality. The riskscape model provides many of the tools that are necessary to understand risk and vulnerability in a format that can assist in disaster management and recovery. However, we argue here and elsewhere that it is unbalanced and incomplete, requiring expansion of the social and power relation components. In particular, it requires a gender lens to understand hazard, risk, vulnerability, recovery, and especially resilience. Gender is a principle, although certainly not the only, the model. So, how are riskscapes gendered? They're gendered, and while gender fits most obviously sex assignment and identity, female and male, and socially constructed gender identity, roles and relations attributed to women and men as feminine or masculine. They become more complex. They have become more complex in both scientific and ordinary usage. We use women and men as broad categories for socially defined and performed as examined. They demonstrate the quintessential, albeit be an extreme example of how gender influences disaster impacts and are integrated into public space, have strong networks and social capital, have leadership and organizational experience greater levels of gender equality. Essentially, when women are more equal partners in family, social, and community life, they and their entire communities are better able to withstand the shocks and manage the aftermath. Bantul comes closest to exemplifying these capacities, and Aceh the least, with Merapi somewhere in between. While there are numerous differences that serious study must acknowledge, a major one from the standpoint of this research is the differences in women's status and their integration into political and civic affairs. And it's interesting that in Bantul, which we are maintain had the best recovery, the fastest recovery, and the most just recovery, the fairest recovery, women were fully integrated into the economy and previously, and sometimes, although through somewhat coercive participation, they were very active in civic affairs through civic and state organizations such as the PKK. They were politically and civically engaged with lots of organizational experience. In other words, they had substantial amounts of social capital to draw on, and this experience assisted their participation in post-disaster planning efforts. And basically, these are two pictures that we took of social capital in practice. One is sort of the mutual assistance of rebuilding a school after the earthquake, and the other is an Arazan, which was a central part of village life. The women who reside in villages high on the slopes of Merapi, however, were less likely to have participated previously in strong civic organizations, with consequently less organizational experience, social capital, and little say in post-disaster plans. Of course, individuals and families do not stand alone. They are embedded in communities and characteristics and social relations of the larger community contribute to recovery. At the community level, disaster communities, regardless of all other factors, will recover faster, will be more resilient when they, of course, with gender integration and mainstreaming, but when they have strong and local government and leadership, bridging social capital across the entire community, absence of pre-existing conflict, and embedded conflict reduction mechanisms. These conditions don't guarantee resilience, but they greatly enhance its likelihood. Gender provides one of the major sources of difference in power and consequent restriction in access to resources and ability to exercise agency when necessary. It is embedded in riskscapes, and consequently they are gendered. Riskscapes are distinguished by the degree of gender mainstreaming and women's empowerment, thus promoting gender justice via incorporation into all aspects of community life. In turn, gender justice promotes climate justice, as the famous saying goes. Okay, so in conclusion, riskscapes are a tool to help people, individuals, families, communities bounce forward. So far, these are after-the-fact observations and analyses. However, they can also be used as policy instruments. The value of the detailed formulation of riskscapes is that they provide a framework to evaluate risk and vulnerability, highlighting where intervention and change may be necessary to promote recovery and resilience. Identifying the social and spatial relations that define risk and vulnerability, for whom, under what conditions, provides the tools for planning for future shocks and minimizing their impacts. The significance of gender within the riskscape model and across different riskscapes suggests promoting and achieving gender justice and equality, empowering and mainstreaming women, and fostering inclusive development practices. These are key steps to planning for resilient responses to disaster and climate change. It's not a guarantee, but rather a step toward creating a more responsive environment that's more likely to result in recovery that is inclusive and just. Given the severity of impending challenges from climate change, given how entrenched power relations are, addressing these changes before and after disaster leads to a bounce forward for transformational change. I got a lot of references if people are interested, but basically I want to thank you. If you have questions, comments, suggestions, please send them my way. And I think we have a time a little bit later to discuss some of this, but please feel free to email me with any questions that you might have. Thank you very much.
Regarding the escapes during the crisis, the point is that this kind of model can depict well in times of crisis, as well as there's the gender mainstreaming, gender equality will be the key, will be the successful in handling the disastrous situation. Thank you, Professor Ann. So without further ado, I invite Professor Sabariah Saleh to present her presentation about information disorder in the digital era. So Professor Sabariah is a senior lecturer in the University Kebangsaan Malaysia from the Social Media Studies, and her works is mainly in the area of communication, media, and social media as well. Without further ado, I invite Professor Sabariah Saleh. Time is yours, Professor. Hello, Professor. Are you there?
Thank you so much, Bapak. Thank you so much for the kind introduction. Hello, everyone. Firstly, very sorry I don't have the background because I'm using an old MacBook and it's not able to somehow, use that format. So anyways, thank you for the invitation to speak today. I'm very honored to be part of this prestigious conference. And today I'll be presenting about information disorder in the digital era. So let me first share my presentation with all of you. All right, so as said by our kind moderator, I am actually an expert in media literacy. So my area of expertise and a lot of my research is pertaining to disinformation, misinformation, and malinformation. And I delve a lot into this area of information disorder. And yeah, so I have done research across ASEAN pertaining to this method. So today I'll be sharing with you some of my observation and also findings and talking about information disorder in the digital era. So my first question to all of you is that how many social media accounts do you have? I'm very interested to know all the audience, how many social media accounts do you have? So I'm going to share with all of you, personally, I have six social media accounts, 3 Facebook accounts because I help manage a few Facebook accounts, and I have 1 Instagram account, a Twitter account, and also a YouTube account. So I am wondering how many social media accounts do you have? And please feel free to share it on the chat box. So I would love to know more about it. So Reno said he has 3. So social media accounts actually gives us the ability and also opportunity to share whatever we want to share. Any information, anything we feel that is important, anything that we feel people ought to know, our OOTDs, the holidays we just went to, for instance, about me, I just went for Hajj. So every day I actually share my experience during my pilgrimage in Mecca because I thought it would be a good thing to share with a lot of people. So it is something, it's an opportunity and ability to share anything and everything that you want. So most people would have these social media accounts: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok now, and we also tend to use a lot of communication platforms such as WhatsApp, Telegram, Viber, Messenger, and etc., which creates this proliferation of information. So there's a tsunami of information. So I'm sharing with you the statistics in Malaysia. So the top 3 networking applications in Malaysia is Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. And our top 3 communication platform is WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, and Telegram. So a lot of information is shared through Facebook, through these social media accounts, and through WhatsApp, and etc. So much so that some information tends to be false information, information which is not credible, and also information which has not been verified. So it is very easy nowadays with this digital advancement and all that. It's very easy. It makes it very easy for people to share information. So this creates what we call an information disorder, an avalanche of information which has actually been discussed by scholars such as Claire Waddell and Rapshan, who introduced this concept. So these scholars asserted that the advancement and transformation of digital technology contributed to this avalanche of information. Even WHO said with the recent COVID, there is an infodemic, a pandemic of information whereby a lot of information, false facts, anything has been shared by people, especially also about COVID at that point, which led WHO to coin the term infodemic. So, like I said, anyone and everyone is a content creator. So it could be, when you just bought something online and you share your opinion, you share how many stars you give to that product, you share what you think. So these types of sharing is also a form of information sharing, and you are indirectly as well creating content. It does not necessarily mean that you need to have a blog account or, sharing your thoughts via your Twitter feeds or your Facebook status or your Instagram or your TikTok videos. So there are also, forums, online forums, and even, like I'm sharing here, leaving comments or reviews on booking.com, on Agoda, and on a lot of other shopping, online shopping platforms is also a form of creating content, right? So people do make money from creating online content. And it's a form. It's a form of a way or a new job created by posting online. We have influencers such as this lady I'm sharing here, which is Pamela. She's an exercise enthusiast who's now one of Forbes 30 under 30. Just by sharing, her exercise videos, and then she went on to endorse some products and all that. And in Malaysia, a famous lady who's an entrepreneur, Vivi Yusof, she started Fashion Valley, which is a very famous online shopping platform. She started with writing on blogs, which is Proud Duck, and she garnered a lot of followers and all that, and and people like how she dressed. And then she started her fashion conglomerate, I would say, and the rest became history. And then, of course, there are accounts of people like what I'm sharing on this part here, this the black thing. It is a Telegram account of people who has used ivermectin to supposedly cure COVID-19. So this is a special account. You need to apply sort of to be a member. I am a member because I did a research, observing on how information was disseminated about ivermectin usage in Malaysia as part of my fact-checking, side job. Right. So also, people tend to share information and some online news outlets also tend to sensationalize and share things such as this piece of news in this online website, which said that what bunga cengkeh boleh sembuhkan COVID-19. So bunga cengkeh is cloves. So it is said the cloves can help cure COVID-19, and this was said by this guy named Suhaimi Saad, which is a popular nasyid singer. who also believes that the earth is flat. So this kind of opinion are published and is free to be read by anybody who clicks on that particular page. Even tuition teachers also shares misinformation or false information online. This shows how easy it is for anyone and everyone to be a content creator, and some people make really a lot of money from this. So the tsunami of information can make or break a society. It has severe repercussions. And some of the repercussions are, with the last 2 years, 700 people in Iran died because they drank methanol alcohol to cure COVID-19 because, it was spread to the social media accounts and all that, saying that drinking methanol would help cure COVID-19. As a result, a lot of people were hospitalized, thousands of people were hospitalized, and 700 people actually died. And also, WhatsApp rumors in India has led to 30 deaths. So it is very worrying because sharing unverified information, information which has not been, it's not credible, has not been checked, has not been fact checked, is worrying because it can lead to severe repercussions. But not many people realize this, and there are people who are taking advantage of this. For instance, this guy. So this guy, Mirko Seselkowski, he made tons of money. He's like a millionaire now. He's from Macedonia. What he did was during the Trump election in 2016, what he did was he created a lot of websites which shares disinformation or false information pertaining to the candidate at that time, which is Trump and also Clinton. So Mirko Seselkowski, if you Google search him, he even prided himself as the person who helped Trump to win the US election. So there are studies about this as well, how fake news helped Donald Trump to win a real election. And this guy is one of the pivotal person, a key person as well, who actually has no interest at all with American politics. What his interest is with money. So he knew that, by sharing this false information, and people were looking for information about US election at that point of time, and he knows that the more clicks he has on his website, the more money he will get. So this, this strategy worked, and he's now a millionaire. And he has a lot of other youngsters working with him as well, who are now rich as well. So you can make money, but it is, of course, in my opinion as a scholar, not ethical. Right. So the goals of communication, as we know, is mainly to disseminate information. Right. So a lot of communication is used to disseminate information, but sometimes when the information is crafted not strategically, perhaps not well thought of, for instance, it can lead to misinformation. So misinformation, according to Wardle, is information, false information which has been shared or been spread or disseminated without any ill intention. It's like a genuine mistake, genuine without any intention. So this is an example I am sharing from 2021. This is from Malaysia, like during when COVID-19 was really bad. Our government shares daily reports on the number of COVID cases. Okay, because we don't do it anymore now, but back at that time, we share a lot of numbers of COVID cases. So they tend to use this map, and they publish these numbers to showcase the number of cases at the certain areas. So why am I sharing with you this particular picture? This is because some people have this misconception that everywhere in Malaysia it was dangerous at that point. But if you look carefully at the map, right, and if you see here in Perlis, the number of cases is only 3. And at that point of time in Putrajaya was only 68 and Labuan only 16. but the whole Malaysia is colored in red, which led people to be, panic, to be scared, to be, worried, and etc. at the point of time. So probably, I don't know, maybe the designer just decided to use the same color for everything, but this actually has, some repercussions. It made people, create wrong assumptions, and etc. So it sort of create misinformation, and people started sharing, about how dangerous it is, and etc. Whereby the danger spots, I would say, at that point of time is maybe Selangor, Kuala Lumpur, Kedah, and several other places. This has also been seen in another statistics, which I had the opportunity to go through as well. So this is a statistics. When they reported about COVID-19 in Malaysia, they also like to report it as clusters. So there'll be, the factory cluster, the retail cluster, the close contact clusters, and etc. So when this particular, if you look at this particular pie chart, cases associated with clusters, you can see that 41% of the cases associated with clusters are from the factory. So this was checked on the mainstream media, and it created a hoo-ha. A lot of our citizens wanted the factories to be closed, and pressured the government to close the factory because of this particular pie chart. However, if you look on the same day, on the 17th of June, this is from 17th of June, actually, out of the whole number of cases in Malaysia, factory cases only contributed to 6% of the total case. But when they present it as this way, it confuses people, and people are worried and assume that 41% of the total cases are from the factory. So this kind of assumption, confusion, and all that is normal, but it is something that can be prevented when we share information. So this is unintentional, of course, but people, they tend to just take whatever information they see and make their own, derive to their own conclusion, and etc. Right. What about disinformation? Disinformation is information, which are shared with an intention to gain some benefit, with ill intention, intention to kill a political character, for instance, and all that. So this sort of disinformation, a lot of research has been done on, portrayal, or effectiveness of advertisements, and etc. So as you can see, this is an advertisement for Colgate, and it's written here, 1 shade whiter teeth in 1 week, with a tiny asterisk there. And here, if you can see this purple box, there's a tiny fine print which says that this research has been done on a certain number of people. But not many people would actually read the fine print, right? So this has created, again, a misconception. People derive to the wrong conclusion and all that. And, advertisers, companies, organizations take advantage of this to gain money. Okay, people like you and me, and people who are probably well versed in research methodology would probably question, how many people, how many samples were there, and etc. So this can also be seen in how newspapers sometimes do their reporting. Okay, in Malaysia, with the recent, hike up of the cooking oil prices and all that, a lot of newspapers tend to do what we call a tinjauan or survey. So they would publish news which says that 50%, for instance, 50% of Malaysians are not happy with the price hike, oil price hike, or they would say 70% of women hate coffee. So some people would take it literally, like 70% of women hate coffee, but there's something that a lot of people fail to do is the question, okay, how did they get a sample? Is it really a representative of the population? and sometimes, because I know I've worked in newspaper before, I know when we do surveys, usually what we do is that, we'll go to a mall, or sometimes even gas stations, wait there for people, interview maybe 5 or 6 people, and then, we start to write our story, and I will say most Malaysians, hate whatever or likes whatever, just based on that 6 or 7 interviews. So, but this is not something that everybody knows, and this is how it is very easy, to lie, not to lie, but to make people think otherwise. It's like a deception strategy as well. So this is worrying because people can be taken advantage of because of this, right? Also, in a lot of Malaysian women magazines and family types of magazines, there are these types of ads which says, khasiat, the benefits of, some certain types of juices. For this instance, this is okay, I can't. Okay, this is a fruit juice, and it is said it can cure cancer, it can fight bacteria, it can cure fevers and all that. There are a lot of exaggeration and over claims made based on this juice. And some people would tend to believe it, and this some people, including some of my family members who had cancer, who really bought this juice because they believe that it could help cure their cancer and all that. Some people even refuse, to go to the doctors or to get seek medical help because they prefer to go through this channel of alternative medication. But sometimes, this type of, medication, it has not been proven, but, it's just merely an overclaim, which is also something, which is also why it led to, for instance, that death from methanol and etc. So it is kind of scary. And it is worrying, especially with the proliferation of information and the tsunami of information and the ability of people to share anything and everything that they want. So it's worrying. So what can be done? What can we do as scholars here? What can we all do to help, curb or help prevent this from happening? What can be done? So it has been done. There are some work which has been done in Indonesia. For instance, Indonesia has a very active fact-checking initiative. You have Check Fakta, you have Mafindo, you have a lot of programs in schools which teach or inculcate these fact-checking skills or media and information literacy skills among young people, which I am very, I'm really at awe and amazed actually, because in Malaysia we currently only have two fact-checking organizations, and one is closely affiliated with the government, and the other one is an independent fact-checking initiative. So can fact-checking initiatives per se, help to prevent, people from being duped or people from sharing misinformation and disinformation? So I'm a person who believes, things must, go in hand. It's a symbiosis, need to work together. So we cannot really just rely on fact-checking initiatives to, check facts and correct the facts. We must, I think it's also very important to inculcate media and information literacy skills among our young people, the older generations, among everyone. It's very important to inculcate media and information literacy skills. So some, work has been done on this. A lot of work has been done on this, and in Indonesia, even in Malaysia, and I believe in countries across the world. Right, there has been, initiatives to inculcate media and information literacy skills. Some of it, work by UNESCO, by Google, and a lot of other organizations as well. So hopefully this will help, to prevent from, people being duped and lied to, and people from sharing misinformation, disinformation, or false information, which has the potential to lead to severe repercussions. So with that, I thank you. Please, feel free to ask any questions in the chat box. I'll be more than happy to help you to answer that. And thank you so much again for the opportunity to speak about information disorder in the digital era. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Sabaria, from the insightful information about information disorder in the pandemic era. So for the further discussion, we have the Q&A session, Professor. So please wait over there. And if there is a question, then you can look at it and then answer during the Q&A session. So I invite the third keynote speaker for this session, Professor Agung Satyawan. Professor Agung Satyawan is a senior lecturer, associate professor in Universitas 11 Maret. His expertise is in the field of international relations and diplomacy, and he will bring his insight on the Indonesian effort in the environmental crisis during and after COVID-19 pandemics. He graduated from university, his PhD is graduated from University Utara Malaysia. And without further ado, I invite Professor Satyawan. Professor Satyawan, time is yours for 20 minutes.
Thank you, Pak Rino. Distinguished speaker, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to speak to you today about Indonesian effort to face the environmental crisis through a deep transformation in localization aspect. I think this topic is relevant to be discussed because we feel the destruction of the earth today still occurs in day to day. So may I permission to share screen?
Sure.
PPT, okay. Okay.
Is that okay, Pak Agung?
Okay.
Works well? All right. Perfect.
Let's start with inspiring words from Barbara Ward. I think it is good words that will inspiring us. What said that we have forgotten how to be good guests, how to walk lightly on the earth as its other creatures do. So what remind us that we are only guests in living together in this same earth shared with other creatures. So I think this good words that still remember me that and remember us that we are all of us is all of us are guests in the same earth. Well, the next slide, this is abstract of my presentation, but I will briefly, I think so small, yes, but I will briefly present Indonesian effort in dealing with environmental crisis through this good opportunity. Indeed, handling this crisis has become a global discussion that has led to international agreement such as the Sendai Framework, the Paris Agreement, the Global Platform for Disaster Risk Reduction, and so on. Some countries have experienced natural disaster. For instance, Australia and US are experiencing forest fire. China is experiencing the worst flooding in this decade. National Disaster Management Authority in Indonesia, or BNPB, has reported that Indonesia to experience more than 3,000 disasters recorded in 2021. So it's a huge disaster in Indonesia. Okay, but the changes is more directed and the people centered that allow local communities to be directed involved. This localization aspect transforms every step in handling and preventing environmental crisis. This is my point that people-centered is important for the disaster risk mitigation or disaster risk reduction and so on. So how the disasters occurred in so very fast in this year and some couple years before. The emergence of deep changes in the face of environmental crisis is due to several background. Recently, we have experienced extreme temperature. It is because greenhouse gases. And greenhouse gases from human activities is the biggest driver of climate change. How big the impact of these greenhouse gases? Indeed, it will be very dangerous if the gas is trapped. It means that the more greenhouse gases accumulate, the warmer the Earth's climate will be. We can look at how big the increase of greenhouse gases on this in the slide. Yeah, you can look at the slide that the greenhouse increased sharply. Yeah? According to data by Rebecca Lindsay from 1980 until 2020s, it's always increased. It increased occurred largely due to the influence of human activities. Okay, the next slide I show the sea temperature. One of the effect increasing greenhouse gases is that ocean heat waves are also increasing. From 1980s to 2020, ocean heat increased sharply. We all know that the ocean are the largest solar energy collectors. Thus, the ocean central role is very influential in stabilizing the Earth climate system. However, with the effect of greenhouse gases through the heat energy then absorbed by the sea. So ocean activities such as waves, tides, current cause heat that continues to move from one part to the another part of the globe. As the sea water warms, the sea level will rise, of course. In fact, ice loss from the Greenland ice glaze increased sevenfold from 35 billion tons per year between 1992 until 21 to 247 billion tons per year between 2012 and 2060. So this warming of seawater threatens marine ecosystem and human livelihoods. It is because the warm water will have a serious impact on coral health. So the coral heads are both as a place to live and a source of food for these marine biotas will be of course disturbed. So at the end, people who depend on marine fisheries will lose their source and food and lose their works. Okay, I continue to the effect of increasing of sea level. Ladies and gentlemen, we can see what will happen if the Earth's temperature increase. Several areas are threatened to be covered by sea levels, such as Amsterdam, New Orleans, Miami, London, Brussels, Stockholm, Ho Chi Minh, Dhaka, Kolkata, Kuala Lumpur, Singapore, Jakarta, and several parts of Indonesia. The effect of the rising sea level also we feel today, especially people who living in the coast, on the line coast of the sea. So, next slides, I show the environmental crisis. Let us look at some example of natural disasters that have occurred in recent days. First is the heat wave in the right side. The heat wave that is happening all over the world with some degrees here. The phenomena on increase in air temperature exceeding 35 degrees Celsius in a relatively long period is accompanied by, of course, by low of humidity. Second is the abrasion, the middle, the portrait of the picture of the middle, is the abrasion disaster that occurred in the coast of Indonesia in the north of Sulawesi region. And left side, this is China has been experiencing with the worst flooding in these decades. This flood condition even disrupted the activities of approximately 500,000 people in South China. All right, I just saw, will show video clip. Okay. This may be inspiring you, yeah, this video clip. Do you hear? Do you hear the sound of this clip? Okay, so I apologize. This is a technical error for the video clip, but it doesn't matter. I just highlight this the end of this video clip. There are some words that we still we can remember this word. It said that we don't have protect nature. If we don't have protect nature, we cannot protect ourselves. So nature with ourselves is very important and related each with each at one. So ladies and gentlemen, we must not close. We must not close our eyes that climate change and disaster are closely related to each other. that I just say that if we don't protect nature, we cannot protect ourselves. Adaptation to climate change and disaster risk reduction both focus on the dynamic of risks and society, but sometimes their implementation refers to different things, including actors, institutions, a policy, framework, and so on. Therefore, in this development, through a global discussion at the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, disaster risk reduction is a relevant issue with climate change adaptation with the orientation of people-centered. Okay, next slide. Global step. Yeah, this is a global institution facing to seek a solution of the climate change. The world has already focused to save environment. A complex global policy framework has been designed and implemented under the auspices of the United Nations since the early 1990 to establish rules for reducing greenhouse gas emission and monitor the reduction. One is the emphasis of changing the paradigm that leads a people center so that this aspect of localization become a global discussion. The global discussion, just you can look at the PPT, such as Paris Agreements and their framework, the 16 United Nations 96 United Nations Climate Change Conference on the Parties, COP26, in Glasgow, Global Platform for Disaster Risk and Reduction, Grand Birken, and so on. So many talk in the global level seek to seek a solution of the climate change. I think this we can jump to the next slide. How about Indonesia? Indonesia's commitment to dealing with pre- and post-disaster environmental crisis is seen in the implementation of several positive laws. The first is law number 16 of 2026, derivative from the International Paris Agreement, which discuss steps to deal with the climate change. Second is law number 24, 2007, concerning disaster management. And the third, National Strategy for Disaster Risk Reduction 2020 until 2040. Okay, I jump to the localization aspect. The concept of localization is considered more effective in handling and preventing crises. It is because local actors have a closer reach to the location of the crisis disaster. Thus, it is easy to identify urgent needs. The concept of localization is considered more effective in handling and preventing crises. It is because local actors have a closer reach to location of the crisis disaster. Thus, it's easy to identify urgent needs. So, local people and local wisdom is important to reduction and mitigation of the disaster. Some implementations. This is Lombok people use their local wisdom to understand weather and climate patterns to make this decision to crops and agriculture practices. And also Desa Tangguh Bencana, Destana, a disaster resilient village, which was urged by the BNPB through the regulation number 1 in 2012. And the above Destana, Desa Tangguh Bencana, there's also Masyarakat Tangguh Bencana or disaster relation community. The aim of is to build community capacity for disaster resilient and Yapika ASEAN Aid. It is a NGO work to identify and meet immediate needs in affected communities, especially to the women and girls in series of power earthquake struck in central Sulawesi and also another part of Indonesia. So this is the end of my PPT. It is a summary. The localization aspect, which is increasingly being encouraged in handling the environment crisis, has been brought up in several international agreements and the rule of law in Indonesia, and also for NGO and GSO. However, the environmental crisis is still rising with some of the previously described evidence. Therefore, this paradigm shift must be stressed and implemented by local communities, including people with disabilities, women, youth, children, indigenous people, in carrying out the localization aspect. So no one should be left behind the face of crisis, because all are subject of this transformation process. And the last, Earth is more valuable than money. Thank you. So this is me. It's not important. Yep. Okay. Back to Pak Rino.
All right, thank you, Professor Agung, from the insightful presentation about environment and how the locals put their effort in terms of in time of crisis. So something that I can write down from our three wonderful keynote speakers. First of all, from Professor Antika Meyer, she said about the gender equality will propel the recoveries after crisis. There is something that she also showed based on her research how in different location with different social and economic settings affects the recoveries on each location. She mentioned some locations such as Bantul and Aceh. Secondly, Professor Sabaria also mentioned about the threat of disinformation and misinformation in the time of crisis. That is also horrifying, not horrifying, but horrifying in this case. So it can change the pandemic into infodemics. And lastly, Professor Agung also said about how the locals play their role in time of crisis and be ensured that no one should be left behind. All right, now we come to the Q&A session. I have some questions for you, all of those professors. I know, Professor, and it's already late back in the US, but I hope you're still there and answer some of questions, because you have 2 or 3 questions here that has been raised by all of the participants. So in these Q&A sessions, we have 15 minutes of Q&A sessions, and I will invite those who have already write down their questions in the chat box. For the first attempts, I would like to invite Dodi Salman. Pak Dodi, are you around, Pak Dodi? Pak Dodi Salman?
Yes, thank you. Yes, thank you for the time.
Yeah. Okay,
I would
please,
like to ask question to Professor Ann. According to your research, how are the Indonesian people preparing for disaster in the era of President Joko Widodo? Are there any significant things that are lacking and need to be improved? Thank you.
All right, thank you, Pak Dodi. Secondly, I would like
Thank
to
you.
invite Bu Tuti Kurnia. You can raise the question to Professor N. Bu Tuti? Are you around?
Should I answer this question?
Oh yeah, while we're waiting for Bu Tuti, she's not here yet, so you can answer it, Professor. Time is yours.
Okay, well, first of all, I'm not an expert on that, but I think there have been
a lot of efforts to improve advanced warning, preparing for disasters. There are new insurance programs, there are new warning systems, and this has gained some momentum, I think, and gains more and more momentum over the time. How effective they are, I can't answer. I think that requires a lot of research and a lot of more knowledgeable people to answer that. But at least there are, I think like Professor Agung has said, there's more and more recognition of how dire the situation is, both in disaster and climate change, and people are starting to take it seriously. But specific things, I mean, you know, there are new insurance plans, there's new early warning systems for things like tsunamis. There, in after the fact, in many disasters, there are better efforts, better organized efforts to help assist in recovery, but it's still often very top down. It still often doesn't pay that much attention to local community members. It's still very exclusive for different groups, including women, but also including poor people. Anybody who is somewhat marginalized probably is going to be excluded. So I think it's a very big task, and there's a lot more to do.
All right, thank you, Professor. So for the second questions, I would like to Bu Tuti Kurnia. Bu Tuti Kurnia, are you around?
Thank you, Mr.
No? Okay.
Type of disaster has a physical or infrastructure impact
all right.
with a different scale.
Is it? Okay. Yeah,
But
please raise your questions directly to Professor N and Professor Sabaria.
Is the research conduct only looking at recovery on the social and economic psychological impact? What are the findings of physical recovery? Does the scale of the physical impact affect people's recovery capabilities? To Professor Sabaria, what efforts can be made to limit the interference of information from various regions by the local government? Thank you.
Thank you, Bu Tuti. So, Professor N, time is yours to answer the questions.
One of the things that the riskscape model shows is just how complex it is, that you have to take into account certainly the physical environment, certainly the infrastructure, certainly every component of what gets affected in disaster. But my own work, I'm not an engineer, I'm not a physicist or a geologist, so my own work has been much more concerned with the social ends of what happens in disaster. And partly it's because that is not as well studied. People tend to think about the physical damage much more often than they think about the social damage and social recovery. And so I hope that our work fills a tiny, is one little piece of filling the lack of research on that topic.
Professor, because I'm asking, you compare different kind of
any feedback maybe?
Disaster, such as tsunami and earthquake. It's because different type of disaster. It is, you see that there are different impact to the woman or not. Thank you.
As I said, the scale of these are different, and the social relations in the communities are different. So there's an impact for everybody, but it tends to be more severe, certainly with greater scale, but also where people are marginalized, where there's a little effort to include everybody in both planning for the disaster and for working on recovery afterwards. So in that sense, a lot depends not just on the size and scale of the disaster, but what the social relations are in those communities, in the places where the disaster occurs.
So your idea is related to.
All right, thank you, Professor, for the answer. Any more feedback, Bu Tuti?
So your idea is related to
yeah,
Professor
all right. So,
Agung, because he suggests to more localize and to basis to localize. Thank you, Prof.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely. The localizing is really important. And
yeah. All right, thank you. So I invite Professor Sabaria to answer Bu Tuti questions.
Okay.
Professor.
All right. Thank you for the question, Ibu Tuti. About efforts which can be made to limit the interference of information. Actually, you'd be surprised. There's a research in Malaysia actually on elections or disseminating information about elections to smaller communities and all that. So it was found that actually face-to-face communication still plays a very high impact, high effect to the tendency for people to vote certain parties. So the grassroots, support is still very important. So this was done by Samsul Amri, our distinguished professor, Samsul Amri. So he found that face-to-face in this sense, when you say that, how do we disseminate information in various regions without interference by the local government, some of the ways would, I think, to go back to how communication was originally done, to go to the ground, to meet people, and to, have face-to-face interaction. That's also part of a strategy done in Malaysia as well, in terms of when we have new technologies or something to be shared, we have what we call as pegawai penerangan, information officers in the small communities, which would go to see these people personally to relay information. But again, that is information about technologies, new things that they feel that should be known. So these are, I think, some of the ways, and of course, by using technology. Because as we know, it is quite difficult. I mean, there have been efforts or initiatives, to curb certain forms of, information sharing with laws and all that, but it is still quite, difficult actually to control this information sharing, through rules and regulation. So that would be my answer to you, Ibu Tuti.
Thank you, Professor. Any feedback, Bu Tuti?
Thank you for the response. Thank you, Professor.
All right. So, okay. All right. So I invite more questions from Pak Hilarius Bambang. Pak Hilarius Bambang, are you around? So if you are around,
Yes.
please raise your question directly to Professor.
Good morning, Pak Rino.
Yeah.
Okay, my question is directed to Professor Sabaria. So I understood that there are two examples in the advertising industry that already explained by Professor, and I want to know what would be the main roles of government to tackle with such kind of false information issues dissemination, especially over the social media platforms. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Pak, for your questions. Prof. Sabaria, just directly answer the question, please.
All right. Thank you for the question, Papa. So this is a very interesting question actually, because a lot of people tend to question what's the government's role in this, in curbing or handling false information. So usually, I mean, from the Malaysian government, from my observation of what the Malaysian government has done, they try to handle false information dissemination, or dissemination of fake news and all that through laws and regulation. But again, like I said to Ibu Tuti as well, using just merely laws, rules and regulations is it really effective, or is it just a utopian idea? Because how effective can you control someone who's a Malaysian, probably living in London, sharing false information to Malaysians who has access to his website and all that? So it's still quite a challenge and difficult. So which is why I am also try to champion the idea of not just merely relying on the government, or what can the government do, because like Malaysia, we also have sebenarnya.my, which is a government website that helps to correct false information. But again, not many people actually access that website. Not many people actually utilize the website to check, if the information is false and all that. So, like I said, I'm a champion. I would like to champion, or propose that it's very very important to not just really rely on the government, but also to think on what we as citizens, we as the rakyat, we as the people, what can be done, what can we do, what can we teach our children, how can we inculcate skills, certain skills, media and information literacy skills among our children. Because at the end of the day, this is also a finding from one of my UNESCO research. At the end of the day, it's very important to actually inculcate these skills to our young people, because they are the people who are the major users of social media platforms. They are the ones who are sharing most information on Twitter, and etc. So I believe it goes hand in hand. We need the fact-checking initiative. There's also the rules and regulation, but more importantly, also inculcating MIL skills among the people. So that's my opinion.
Thank you, Professor. Wonderful. Any feedbacks, Pak Bambang?
No, thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Sabaria, for your sharing. Thank you, Pak Lino.
Thank you, Pak Bambang. So next I invite Pak Muhammad Azhar. Are you still around, Pak Muhammad Azhar? If you still around,
yes.
just raise your questions directly to the speakers, please.
Thank you, moderator. Professor, my paper showed that in the current era of information, these clouds you call it the tsunami of information. Government-owned service-based Android applications are rarely known by the public. Is this related to the tsunami of information, so that important information about application Android service based, likely this is covered up, is hidden to the public? Why? Is it possible that such allegations are justified, or this is information not being disseminated effectively? Thank you.
All right. Your question is directed to Professor Sabaria or the others, or all of those?
Yes, for Professor Sabaria.
All right, Professor Sabaria, please, time is yours.
Thank you so much, Bapak. Okay, it's a very interesting question, and I personally think as a scholar, it is very difficult to pinpoint, if it is an information cover up, or is it information not being disseminated effectively. Because when we want to discuss this, we have to look back at what are the elements that that affects how information is disseminated, through media or through online and all that. So some of the things that actually affects or give effect to how information is disseminated is, of course, the rules and regulations. So like, we have, like in Malaysia, we have the Official Secrets Act and all that. So if, the information is is certified as a secret by the government, then you are not allowed to share that information, and that could probably be also the reason. Then we also have the element of ownership and control. Sometimes owners of the certain media organization or websites or whatever has some for their own gains or their own benefit would not like to share certain types of information which could probably harm them or give their competitors an edge. So this is also something that we should be talked about, and also this is sometimes you can look at the power of advertising, which also affects how message is disseminated, because sometimes certain media outlets and all that do not share information about certain things because to please their advertisers, to please their readers, because they have to fight for readership, they have to fight to stay afloat, and they to stay, the key of staying afloat is to have more readers, more clicks, and more advertising, and as well, the excess of information, digital divide is also, affects how information is disseminated. I hope that answers your question, Papa Azhar. It's really difficult to pinpoint actually, the reason, because there are a lot of factors which affects information dissemination.
Thank you, Professor. Any feedback, Pak Azhar?
No, thank you for your answer, Professor.
All right, Pak Azhar, thank you. Next, I would like to invite Pak Galan Prakoso. Pak Galan, time is yours. Are you around, Pak Galan?
Yes, I'm around, Pak Rino. Thank you very much. Okay, so based on what my question already showed in the chat, actually I would like to ask questions again to Professor Sabaria. I'm sorry, Professor, this has been a consecutive questions towards you, berturut-turut. But yeah, actually I think it's very interesting about the facts that you already mentioned before regarding on the findings that face-to-face communication is still relevant regarding like in the during the election in Indonesia and even also in Malaysia. You still have like pegawai penerangan and so on. And actually this also especially happened in grassroots level, right? That my question is actually, do you agree that the thing is that should be empowered in this case based on this kind of findings is actually the digital literacy level of peoples, instead of we just like giving more and more socialization and maybe increasing frequency of dissemination? Because I found it's quite interesting that Indonesia actually for these 2 consecutive years we already held like this kind of a national movement for digital literacy, like they call it Cyberkreasi Kominfo. So basically it's a government program that aims to empower the citizens of Indonesia regarding how they use or how they engage with digital world and technology, because most of us only use it for entertainment, and that's not very beneficial, right? But somehow this is the second year of the intensification of this movement, and I think that somehow in certain parts, especially for the young generations, their understanding and their utilizations of the digital media and digital apparatus is slightly improved. Would you answer my question before about your opinion and your agreement? And also would you kindly like tell us about the Malaysian experiment or the Malaysian approach on doing this, on empowering digital literacy of for the people in Malaysia? Thank you very much, Professor.
Thank you, Bapak. That's a very, very interesting question. So on the question, do I agree, to empower digital literacy level? Yes, I very much agree that there is a need to empower digital literacy level. But I think, Bapak, we cannot also, discount the fact that, I'm talking about Malaysia. Not all areas in Malaysia has access to the internet. Not everybody has a smartphone. Not everybody knows how to search for information, to Google up information, and etc. I know that, the numbers are rising. The numbers of people owning a smartphone with internet access has definitely increased. But we have cases, for instance, just last year, when we had to do online exam, this girl who was a university student who had to go back to her village to do her exams did not have internet access and had to actually climb a very tall tree to get access to do her exam. So we still have such cases. And in my interview as well with MCMC, that's the organization on multimedia and media cooperation in Malaysia. One thing that I discovered is that an important thing for them is still, the rolling out of technology. Creating access is still something that is considered as more important compared to empowering people with digital literacy. This was a question actually posed to them because because we do have this program called Klik Dengan Bijak. So Klik Dengan Bijak is a program supposedly, to help people, to empower people on digital literacy. But what I did was I looked through the modules. And by digital literacy, what they meant was, how do you use PowerPoint? How to use Photoshop effectively. So we do have also courses because we do have internet centers at small villages and cities. But these internet centers, they have courses which help these villagers to be more familiar with how to use the computer instead of how to access information to the computer. The thing that is still stressed on or focused on is still how to use the device and not how to use the device for your own benefit to gain more information, access to information, and etc. So it's something, and also there's this thing which I discussed again because you were talking about findings. So in my interview as well, it was found that people has different skills, sets of skills, even people living in the urban area, because we do have the urban poor as well, who also do not have access to the certain device. Not everybody has, probably they use some normal phone and not phone with internet on it, and this is in the urban areas. And also because they have to subscribe to the internet is not free, so people who are probably not really well off do not have access. And like you said, Bapa, of course people like young people, they tend to use it more for information, not for entertainment, to watch Netflix, to listen to their favorite bands on YouTube or whatsoever. So there's this also important element of trying to create this interest of social change, of political awareness and all that, which I believe is something there's something called political literacy as well. So this is something that still needs to be inculcated. Interests need to be created. I'm not really sure how, but probably this also affects how people think it's important to look for information. As long as I get access to my YouTube, it's fine. I do not need to look for propaganda or what these political party champions and all that, because that's not important to me. And this is worrying actually, because we have in Malaysia, we have the Undi 18, which is going to allow 18-year-olds to start to be in election. I mean to have the power to vote. So this is also worrying as well. So I'm not sure if I answer your question, Bapa, but yeah, that's what I think.
Okay, thank you, Professor Sabaria. So I think I invite Pak Umar Salahuddin. This might be the last question from the audience, but if you have one, so just raise your hand or write it down in your chat box. Pak Umar Salahuddin, are you around? Okay, Pak, time's yours, Pak. Sorry, Pak, we cannot hear your voice, Pak. Have you put your microphone correctly or?
Sorry, we can hear.
Oh, okay. So can I just read his question? So this dedicated to Prof. Sabaria. Pak Umar here want to ask more about the information technology law. So we have it here. We call it UU ITE or Informasi and Transaksi Elektronik. Does Malaysia have it one as well? If so, how the law has been implemented so far? Is it also targeting civilians who are critical of the state? So this is like the ISA one for the Singapore, but in terms of this kind of electronic transaction means. So time's your Prof. Sabaria.
Right. Okay. Thank you for the question, Bapak. Actually, we did have one in 2018. They tried to create a fake news act, but I think in 2020 it was somehow when was taught again. So we do not really have a specific. We do not have like a specific law on fake news. But last year, when it was the height of COVID-19, what we used was there's the declaration of the state of emergency, which prevents or stipulated that people who shared false information about COVID-19 at that time can be persecuted and be brought to the court. So we have that, but I think fake news law is not the only law which controls or help to regulate the dissemination of false information. We also have other laws such as the libel and slander acts, and we also have the print. I mean, Malaysia, we have the Printing and Publishing Act, which also stipulates that we are not like, it does not directly say that you cannot spread disinformation or misinformation. It does not say that, but it does say that you cannot spread information which can create civil unrest, which can create which can make people fight with each other, or create some unrest among the community. So we do have those kind of laws which helps as well in controlling or regulating the dissemination of information. So when you say, is it also targeting civilians who are critical of the state? I don't. I mean, I don't think Malaysia is that bad, but you must see, our number in the World Press Freedom has of course declined, but it does not particularly attack certain citizens or people who are critical of the state. But if you share, certain information which is not, verified and all that, there is a potential for you to be persecuted. Because even a journalist once was, persecuted because she shared an unverified information about COVID on her personal Facebook account, and she was actually brought to court because of that. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Professor Baraya. So it is very challenging to balance between the democracy and at the same time we have to limit the misinformation and disinformation. So I think we would talk more about that later on. I would like to invite Pak Galan. I'm sorry, Pak Galan, I forget to ask you for the feedback. Do you have any feedback, Pak Galan?
Yeah, actually just a little. Thank you very much, Pak Rino. Actually, I already thanked Professor Sabaria in the chat, but yeah, actually it's a very interesting thing that from your answer that we knew also that these cases also still happen in Malaysia about the infrastructure and about the internet access limited in some areas. I believe also that Indonesia also experienced this kind of limitations to imply the most sophisticated form of digital technology application on the people. But just one little thing that I still needs to reassure to you, Prof. Um, so does this means that most of the like what you said about the dissemination information and also about the digital literacy empowerment done by the government or even by any stakeholders is still done or is still coordinated in the central level in Malaysia, I mean in the federal government? Because what I've been trying to perceive is like this maybe also can become a material for future discussion, how autonomy or how like local influences, local government influences, local level government or local level stakeholders can also influence the very what you call the implementation of the digital literacy itself. Because what I've been observed here in Indonesia is like this national movement of digital literacy is done by the ministry, and mostly it's very centralized. So they just done a series of webinar, seminar throughout the nation, throughout the country, using Zoom, using online meetings, and the participants is actually a lot and range from various backgrounds like students, workers, peoples, even housewives. And the topic is based on what they engage every day, starting from how to reduce stress in online classes, how to filter information, how to secure your account and password when you're surfing the internet, and so on and so forth. But from what I'm seeing here, I just want to reconfirm that it means that even in the federal level government um, of Malaysia, the practices is basically still centralized also. I mean, like for digital information regulation kind of thingy. And this makes also this also led to another assumption by me, sorry, that that maybe we are not already prepared for the 4.0 things, because from what you've said that they already thought about how to use Photoshop and PowerPoint. Same also here maybe. So basically we are still stuck in the 3.0. So this topic of the conference today is actually very relevant, because the transformation of in the times of crisis is actually should be happen not only on how we approach things and also on the infrastructure, but also how our mindset deal with this kind of uh, status of communication dissemination. I think that's all, Professor. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Pak Galan. Prof. Sabaria, any addition, please?
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. But then kan, I think lah, going back to what you said at the end, you said, are we ready for 4.0, or maybe are we stuck still at 3.0? I think our governments, Indonesia, Malaysia, or any other government is doing their best. And I think the intention of probably sharing, how to use Photoshop and all that it's a good intention, because probably that particular village and all that, it's still something new. And I mean, something probably I failed to share here is, one of the reasons why they share, how to use Photoshop, how to use PowerPoint and all that is actually to help the local people to embark in digital marketing, to start their own small businesses and all that. So that's one of the ways that they want to empower people. So empowering people, I think it's not just politically, but how do you empower them, in an economic sense, and all that. And then going back also to what you said, Bapa, about is the effort to for digital literacy centralized? I would say no. We do have a lot of persatuan organizations as well here in Malaysia that is championing digital literacy, and then we do have AROS and MEFA that actually it's an independent organization which conducts trainings for teachers in digital literacy, in hopes that these teachers would share with their students, things that they have, the skills that they have learned through these courses. So I can share the website, because all the materials are online. Anybody and everybody can access to these digital literacy materials as well. And also on my part as well, like I work with UNESCO and currently also creating online learning materials to be accessed by university students on media and information literacy, which is related to digital literacy as well. So there are a lot of efforts, but again, one of the problems that I would like to also highlight here is that sometimes we tend to work in silo. So probably there needs to be more effort for people to work together for all these projects to be combined so that it give a greater impact. So yeah, that's my answer.
Okay, thank you, Professor. Pak Umar, are you still around, Pak Umar? Do you have any feedbacks? Okay, any feedbacks, Pak Umar? If you cannot raise your questions, you can just put it on the chat box so I can read it for you, or Professor Sabaria can read it by herself. Sorry, because we cannot hear you here. All right, while Pak Umar is typing his response, I would like to invite Bu Citra. Bu Citra, are you around, Bu Citra? So Bu Citra raised a question to Pak Professor Agung. Bu Citra, are you around? Bu Citra, time is yours to raise your questions. Oh no, you're not around. Okay, I will read it for you, Bu Citra. I would like to ask a question for Dr. Agung. Are local communities being facilitated by globalization in their efforts to protect the environment? So, Prof. Agung, time is yours.
Thank you, Citra. Well, in the last decades, global community have interest to the local people of the effect of disaster and also the environment and climate change and so on. Such as I just say in the Grand Bargain and also in the Sendai and also and the GDPR, this is highlight the need for a whole society approach to disaster and reduction risks of disaster, and also emphasizing that no one left behind. And in the national level, we know that Indonesian, besides a national law, Indonesian also admires and recognize adat law. So indigenous people also protect with the law, but you know this environment is also a very tricky field. So there's a battle of economic interest, political interest, indigenous interest, and so on. So it is dynamic for the to protect the indigenous people in the forestry, for instance. Thank you.
I have more questions for you, Professor Agung. So I get you mentioned about the Indonesian effort to face the environmental crisis. As we understand that during the COVID-19, the environmental crisis become more severe with all of the waste from the mask, for example, or for all others health equipments to combat this COVID-19. How do you perceive that kind of crisis? How should the state respond to that? How Indonesia responds to that? How the ASEAN responds to that? Or in international level, how should the countries respond to that?
Okay, I think the Indonesian and also ASEAN, because the next year Indonesia is chairman of ASEAN, so must respond to the effect of the COVID-19 and also related with the environment crisis. So there is many garbage during the COVID-19, such as mass garbage and also some of vaccine. So this is much managed well to the environment protection during the COVID-19.
Right. Thank you, Pak Agung. So we have witnessed all of these three wonderful speakers speak about many facets of the crisis. We can understand now that the crisis can mold it into something that multifaceted and can change the condition in multiple sectors. But before we close this session, I would like to invite all of the three speakers to give a closing statement on their respective fields. For the first time, I would like to invite Professor Ann to give a closing statement. Professor Ann, time is yours. I know it's been late, Professor Ann, but are you still around?
You know, one of the things that I think is really important is that we don't get lost in our disciplinary silos, that we take a multidisciplinary and a multidimensional and a very broad view of crisis and ways to respond to it. We're not going to get out of crisis or even work on it if we take a one-dimensional approach to it. So getting lots of different kinds of perspectives, lots of different disciplinary work, lots of different experts, lots of different ordinary people working on these things, I think is really important.
All right, thank you, Professor Ann. Good night. After this, you can leave and have rest.
Right, thank you.
All right, Professor Sabaria, time is yours to give your closing statement.
Thank you, Bapak. Okay, I think in times of crisis, in times of this digital era, you know, the proliferation of information has created this tsunami of information, and you know, which requires all of us to be more vigilant and critical when we come across any sort of information, be it on social media and mainstream media. And I would just like to also, you know, share with all of you. And I hope that all of us, I mean, if you have children, your nieces, nephews, and whatever, I think it's very important to start, you know, inculcating this, you know, this importance to be critical when you come across any information, even in textbooks and all that. Since young, so that they, you know, they are, become a savvy user of the media and savvy, you know, information searcher and sharer. That's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. So being critical is important. Now young people just try to be more critical. Okay, last but not least, I invite Professor Agung.
Rino, money is not a priority of our life because the earth is more valuable than money, and we don't. We should care and protect our nature because it's also mean that we can protect of ourselves, protect of humankind. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Professor Agung. So please give a big applause to all of these three speakers. You can give applause like this, or you can just put a signage on the Zoom. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to an end on this session. I have to conclude. As a moderator, I have to conclude. We have faced different kind of threat or crisis in the meantime, and we also will have it in the future. What we can learn from that, we have our three keynote speakers here emphasize the importance of empowerment, starting from the gender equality, gender empowerment, strengthening the community through the localization governance, and also not being forget to be critical, because being critical can avoid us to come a new kind of crisis like the infodemics in the current situation. So that's all from me. Have a nice conference in the next session. Don't forget to attend the next session and follow your session as well. And see you later. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, that was the plenary session 1, which was guided by Rino Ardian Nugroho, SOS MTI PhD. Thank you very much, Rino Ardian Nugroho, SOS MTI PhD. Well, the next agenda is our parallel session. But before we move to the parallel session, we would like to invite you all to have a praying break. The next agenda will start promptly after praying break at 12:45. Once again, at 12:45 Western Indonesian time. And let me inform you about parallel session. The session will be guided by moderators in each room. Honorable Bintang Indra Wibisono S.Hub in MA in room A, and Honorable Andriko Sandria SIP MA in room B, Honorable Nora Nailul Amal SOS MLMED Honors in room C, Honorable Randi Satria SIP MA in room D, and Honorable Aulia Suminar Ayu SICOM MECOM in room E. And we not forget to remind you all to use the format name who was shared in chat box. And the closing agenda of first day ICASEPS 2022 also will held in parallel room by each moderators. Well, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, enjoy your break session and see you in parallel session with the moderator in each room. I'm Yusron Afifi, thank you.
Faculty of Social and Political Sciences Universitas 11 Maret Surakarta of FISIP UNS was founded in 1976, inaugurated at the same time with Universitas 11 Maret Surakarta. FISIP UNS carries the vision as a